Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the Fitness League podcast. So, if you missed that whole announcement, you can probably go back a couple episodes now and kind of catch up as to why we are a new name and what happened there. But today, I'm super, super, super excited to bring you another one of our amazing coaches. This is Coach Hailie Rust, and we're going to be talking about all things postpartum, mental health, physical health. We're gonna have just a good mom to mom postpartum conversation, and I'm super pumped. But hi, Hailie. I guess just first introduce yourself for anyone who might not know literally anything about you. Like, give us the cliff notes and the basics.
Yeah. Hi. I'm Hailie Rust. Like Alessandra said, I am a assistant coach with, can I say the name?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can say the name.
With Levolution
This is a
Coaching.
weird time for all of us.
Yeah.
We're in weird, like nobody knows right now that we're a
They'll
level
know
two,
soon.
but they'll know when they're listening to this podcast. So it's like, it's strange. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes. So I'm an assistant coach with Levolution Coaching, and I'm super excited to be here. I'm a mom of three. My youngest is 6 months old. I have a daughter named Zoe, who is 3 years old, and then I have a son named Milo, who is 5 years old. And my husband and I own two businesses outside of what I do here with coaching. So we are busy, but we love what we do. We chose careers that fill our cups and instead of leaving us feeling depleted, which is really great.
Talk about those businesses because I think people will be interested to hear. I know at least one of them.
One of them, yeah. So Tyler, my husband, is a general contractor here in Minnesota, and so he does pretty much any like house remodel stuff, like additions, remodels, all of that. But 2 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, he built us a sauna, and I was like, we should capitalize on this. Like, this is just right already doing what you're doing. The market is starting to have a big demand for it, and we just put a couple ads out on Facebook Marketplace and just decided to see what would happen. So we have a sauna building business that is called Soda Sauna Co. And we've made 18 custom saunas now, and they've been delivered in Minnesota and in Wisconsin. And they're all unique. None of them have been the same. Some have pulled like similar features or, hey, I like that, but I want this also. And they are all completely custom to you. So they're super great and we love it. And we get to sauna multiple times during our week. And we also have a cold plunge that he made out of a chest freezer. So it's just a perfect backyard oasis in our backyard.
It's so nice having that. You guys, if you listen to the podcast, you know we talk about our sauna all the time. We don't have one of Hailie and Tyler's amazing saunas yet, maybe one day. But they're just so cool, like watching the whole building process and like seeing how unique each one is. Like it's just a really cool account to follow. So if you guys want to go follow them, shout out. It's just Soda Sauna Co, right?
Yep.
Yeah, on Instagram.
Yeah.
But I love that. And I love that you guys both are entrepreneurs. I love that you both have just created this lifestyle and created this life with your kids that you guys really just enjoy all the family time. And it's something we can highly resonate with.
hmm
But let's talk about like where you got started with coaching and like with the fitness industry in general, and then how you got to where you are today working for Levolution.
Yeah. So I was originally at post high school. I went to school to be a preschool teacher. I was in that. I had two surgeries for endometriosis. And after my second one with a new surgeon, he had told me that a lot of my symptoms could be managed through lifestyle change. I didn't grow up living in a home that emphasized like exercise, or we didn't really even talk about healthy eating. We just ate food. And so that was kind of like kick-started my whole journey. I started off with Whole30 because that was like the big rage all like then. That was probably 11 years, 10 or 11 years ago now. Um, and it taught me a lot about what foods then really affected my endometriosis. And then that kind of just snowballed. But also, the best skill that Tyler and I talk about all the time is that Whole30 taught us how to cook differently than the way that we were raised. And yes, it's really extreme, and I wouldn't recommend it to a lot of people doing it to do it now just because I've grown. But it gave us a lot of skills as far as like, how do you season foods? How do you make things that are not gravy based? Because I'm from the Midwest, everything is like creamy, like the cream of mushroom, cream of chicken, everything was always just like a hot dish style thing. So how do we not do that? And then from there, it evolved, and I got for my birthday one year, Tyler and my mom bought me a Beachbody program, and I just started learning how to work out in the comfort of our old basement, and it just kind of grew from there. While I was in school and I was working at a daycare center in their like school age classroom, I was like, I just don't feel like this is right. And the local Anytime Fitness was hiring for an office manager. I ended up interviewing with them, and they were like, we actually want to take you on as a trainer and we'll train you. And so then I got all hands-on training while I became certified, and then just grew from there. And then I eventually ended up managing the training department. But when I got pregnant with Milo, I knew that I wanted to be at home. And with Tyler's business with his dad, that was getting like a good build going. So it was a no-brainer for me to be able to stay home with Milo. So I left there when I was like 6 months pregnant with Milo, I think, and then started working with Tyler. And then I wasn't coaching at all after having Milo. Then we got pregnant with Zoe. Well, in between there, I kind of started doing like my own online coaching, but it wasn't anything heavy. It was just kind of more for fun, and was with people that I have known through like my own community through Facebook primarily. Had a couple clients there. Then I battled with postpartum depression, very heavy with Zoe. And once I kind of got through the clouds, like I saw like light kind of starting to peek through, I had saw that you guys were hiring, and I knew that I needed to add something back in for myself. And I needed to tap back into this world because this is what like lights up my heart. And I knew that that was something that I needed beyond just being a mom. So I was like, well, I don't think I'm qualified at all, but we'll just see what happens. We'll just like, because I haven't been in the online space. And then we interviewed, and I was like, Tyler asked me, he's like, how did it go? I was like, well, I hope they feel it went as great as I do, because it just felt like the perfect match. And I hope that it works out. And here we are, going into year 3 of working
Can't
with you.
believe that was 3 years ago, first of all.
Oh,
No, I love that. And we're gonna dive into postpartum, all that stuff in a second here. But I think, just thinking back to when we interviewed you, something that both Josh and I agreed really stood out was your love for just the whole mindset side of things and how you really, I think you already went through HMCC, the
mhm. I
first
just
level
graduated from
one.
it. Yeah,
Yep. At that time, and now you have your level two. For those who don't know, HMCC is the Health Mindset Coaching Certification. Our friend Casey Joe puts it out, and it's honestly, I
it's
mean, you could
amazing.
speak to it. It's
Yeah.
the best certification out there. Most of our team is certified in it because it's something I think a lot of coaches and trainers and just people in general don't realize truly impacts your health and your fitness, right? So like it was this gap that needed filling for so long where people just kind of thought health coaching or just, when they think of this stuff, they think training and nutrition. And that was sort of just a piece of the puzzle that was constantly like just wasn't filled. So when we talked to you, that was the one area that we felt was like your specialty because we
Mhm.
could tell you were so passionate about it. And I think your own story certainly bleeds into that side of things too. And that kind of just, I mean, I asked Robin this as well, but like, tell me a little bit more about like your favorite thing about coaching and that maybe it's in that regard or not, but feel free to go on a tangent and talk about that too.
Yeah. So when I was like reviewing the questions this morning, I was like, what am I gonna say? Like, but it's just then I was like, I'll know what I know it. It's just perfect. So obviously people come to us with like external body composition changes. But my goal as a coach is to never let a single client leave as the same person as when they first signed up in an internal way. Like I want them to understand why they do the things that they do, or why the things that why can't they do the things that they want to do in some degree. Maybe we don't get the opportunity to make it full circle for whatever reason, but in some way, I want them to understand a little bit more about why they do the things that they do. And that all comes back to mindset. I remember like that's always been something that I've been very curious about. Growing in a family that had some addiction struggles. I was always curious, like why does that happen? Where does it like I've always been curious about why we do the things that we do. So then when health mindset came out, I was like, this is literally like gold. Like I get to like explore that and feel this passion and then like blend it together. So I love helping clients get curious about what they do, or why can't we do something like that? Like just yesterday when I was doing a check-in, one of my clients shared that like she was really struggling with becoming somebody who plans because, and then she under like through reflection and through like trial and error, she's like, when I have a plan, it gives me evidence that I failed if I don't follow through. And she's like, but I realize because of our time together that that's really black and white thinking and that that's not helping me. So now I just have to embrace planning and know that it's okay if it's not going to go to that perfect plan because then I have something to then evolve from. But versus like shooting in the dark or saying, I'm going to try to do this versus I'm going to do this versus that keyword try there is a huge thing because then you're giving yourself permission to already not show up because you're already making that in your brain. It's okay to not show up versus I'm going to do this.
I love that. And I think that's probably super helpful for so many people to hear. A question that I get a lot, and I think we've passed it on to the team before. People will ask, like, well, how can I improve my mindset? Or like, what are a few things I can do to improve my mindset? And well, we know it's not as cut and dry as like, okay, follow this list and you're good to go. What's like maybe one or two things you can just kind of throw out there to someone listening who might have heard that and been like, oh, that's me, on top of what you already said, obviously.
To stay curious, but also to not like judge yourself. Like pull as hard as it is, like pull that emotion away. Like, yeah, like it does suck that you can't seem to stick with your diet or your exercise routine or whatever you've tried to implement, but like ask yourself why. Like what comes up repeatedly or what are the things that you're saying in your head? Like, do you ever listen to what's going on within your own mind? Or are you just trying to like hammer through? Being curious is like the first step because you're giving yourself a chance to create awareness. And then when you have awareness, you get more clarity. And then with clarity, you can create an action plan and then you can take action. So you just have to stay curious. And it's easy to be mean to yourself in the silence of your own mind. We're all really, really great at that. But if you can just pull that voice off and then just ask yourself why, like what is actually going on, then you get to not be mean to yourself and you get the opportunity to actually change.
I love that. And I think that is really hard to do when we're alone doing this ourselves, which I'm not going to turn this into a coaching pitch, but it is super helpful to have someone kind of ask you those questions or read through your check-in for the week and be like, let's say it wasn't a great week, which we know a lot of our clients have off weeks. That's just part of the process.
Mhm.
And we talked about this with Robin on our podcast with her about how a lot of people have that all or nothing thinking and that perfectionism mindset. And I think that's even more prevalent when it comes to coaching for some reason. People think that they have to show up and sign up for coaching and be this perfect person and have the perfect macros and the perfect check-ins every week. But that's not why we're here. And that's not why they come to
Mhm.
us, because obviously everybody has their own struggles. So I think it's super important to, if not work with someone who can ask you those questions, to kind of pause and ask yourself those questions and just kind of assess the situation before continuing to act. And I think that alone can be so powerful. I
Mhm.
love that. But you kind of touched on this earlier, and you're a mom of three, of course. You're 6 months postpartum now. You've been through quite the journey when it comes
Mhm.
to navigating. I mean, I'm sure every postpartum experience has been so incredibly different for you.
Yeah.
So let's kind of just talk about that side of things a little bit. And obviously, you're in a really great place now. I would say, I mean, I don't know how Milo's postpartum experience was, but watching you postpartum this time has been just incredible, knowing what you've been through. So let's go through the dark side a little bit as much as you want to
Mhm.
share. And then we'll
Yeah.
kind of go through what led to the changes that occurred for you to have a completely different experience this time.
Yeah. So my postpartum journey with Milo, there was a lot of bliss because he was our first kid. But then there was also a lot of nervousness. Like when I look back now, I can definitely say that I had postpartum anxiety, but I didn't know that because one,
Mhm.
it's never talked about. Nobody tells you what to what degree of like worrying or like wondering, as a first time mom, like where does it go from first time mom worries to a mental health struggle? And that was that, so I think that that kind of carried over through into my pregnancy with Zoe, but I didn't know. You only know what you know. And then with Zoe, I was actually in a really solid place. Postpartum depression didn't kick in until about 5 or 6 months postpartum. And I was prepared to show up and tackle postpartum anxiety. I had worked with my therapist. We had tools. I knew what to look for. We were checking in, like everything was good. And then all of a sudden depression came. And I've battled with depression before in high school, but this was a big monster. It just like stormed through and it was dark. And it was also there was so much shame because I was like, I like prepared for this. Like, why is this now happening? And Zoe's birth was a lot different than Milo's. Zoe was an emergency C-section. I had the most wonderful labor experience. This was also during the pandemic, so it was just that was also a different experience, but my labor was great. I was ready. I was in the tub, and Tyler's like, "Hey, things are progressing for you. We should probably have the midwife come in and check." And I was like, "Yeah, I would agree." He was like, "Just like with how you're having to breathe through things." She then was like, "Hey, things are looking great. You're about 9 centimeters. Your water hasn't broke. We can break your water and we can have your baby before 4 p.m." And we didn't know Zoe was a girl. She was a surprise gender for us. We did surprise gender for Milo and Zoe. But with Nora, we did find out for the kids. And she broke my water and down came Zoe's foot. And it was rapid fire. She was in the midwife was in the room and it was at 3:30. She was like, "We have to go to have an emergency C-section." Like it was so fast. We didn't even have time to think or ask questions. And she actually had to stay on my bed with me and keep her hand in place so Zoe wouldn't come any
So was
further.
it just because she was breech? Like because
Yep, just because she was breech and
okay.
they wouldn't deliver a breech baby, which knowing now that's super frustrating because there was nothing medically wrong. We were
Right.
healthy, everything was good. But they just don't train to deliver breech babies.
Right. Yeah.
So the thing that I missed the most with that I remember like being looking the most forward to with Milo was that immediate contact, like that skin to skin, that immediate contact, feeling that bliss. But instead, I was like sorting through all of these things. I felt super gross from the epidural, from the other medication. I remember being there, like thinking I don't know if I'm going to make it through this because my heart rate and my blood pressure were so crazy. And the anesthesiologist, she was like, "It's okay. Like, this is how I'm just adjusting your meds. Like, you're okay. Like, just don't close your eyes." And so for a moment, I thought that like I might never meet Zoe. And so that was really hard. And Tyler didn't know, do I go be with Zoe while they're like making sure she's good, or do I stay with Tyler? And recovery wise, I also wasn't prepared. Milo and Zoe are 2 under 2, they're 22 months apart. So then having a C-section that I was not prepared for made home life very crazy. And Tyler's business was still really young. So he also didn't have the flexibility to be home as much. And then me, who doesn't like to ask for help, really struggled. And that was also the thing that I've done. The biggest thing from this time is different is asking for help and accepting help and not feeling guilty about it. That was a very big thing that I worked through postpartum. And even if it's uncomfortable, even now, like today, grandma's sick. Tyler has the kids. I was like, you have to be out of the house. It has to be radio silent. And I felt bad because I know he has work to do. But then I was like, wait, my stuff is just as important as his stuff. Like we can work together and we can find a way to make this happen. So Zoe's journey was really dark after that. And I think I struggled physically because I hate not feeling like I'm capable. And it was really hard to do things postpartum while recovering. But then things were okay for a little while. And then she was born in July. Then I think winter blues kind of just really amplified things up. And I remember it was actually around this time, I was sitting on my living room floor with Milo and Zoe, and I literally could not stop crying. Like it just wouldn't stop. And I was like having some intrusive thoughts, and I just called my sister and I said, "Are you working? Can I come to your house?" And it was no questions asked. Yes, I'm working, but I'll log off. You can come over. Let me know when you're on your way. I just needed to remove myself from my home and just be with somebody who I knew wouldn't pressure me to talk. I didn't want to talk. I just wanted to be with somebody else.
Mhm.
And I knew my sister would give me that. I knew she would give me space if I wanted to talk, but I knew she wouldn't force me to talk if I didn't want to either. And on my way home that night from my sister's house, I called my OB and I asked for an appointment to get on medication just because I was like, this is not something that I can, this is not temporary. This isn't something that I need to keep battling. And it was on my sister's birthday, ironically enough, November 18th, that I started Zoloft. And now I have a tattoo on my arm that says "Be here" in my sister's handwriting because it was just that whole day was just a reminder to just be present where your feet are. And after being on Zoloft, things really just changed rapidly. It was really, really fast. I was really scared to get on medication because I was nursing and I didn't know like what those risks would come. And I said, well, I either take this and I stay alive or I don't and I risk the other outcome. That was like where I was at. And it was really hard to share with Tyler where my headspace was at because I was embarrassed. And that was like really, really hard. But I also needed him to understand where I was fully at. Like it's
Mhm.
easy to keep the things in your mind and not share them verbally, but to express them out loud was a big part of how do we move forward because then he knew what I needed. He was able to share with like my parents and his parents where things needed to go, like what was going on, not to a full extent, just that like we needed all hands on deck. And then later I was able to, share that with my parents as well, like where I was at because I was I didn't know how to tell them when I was in the thick of it. I had to wait until I could comfortably talk about it. And through all of that, I had my therapist along the way as well. And so she was there hand in hand helping me work through it. But I think having medication and then having just like no noise in my head, I remember thinking like, I don't have like, I remember it just kind of always felt like TV static was there. Like it wasn't and like I just couldn't do anything. I would just get paralyzed with like not being able to do a lot, even like basic house tasks. Like I would just kind of feel stuck. And so when that static was away, I was like, wow, like who is this person? What world are we living in? And it was just a big like. Then I was able to make steps to take care of myself from there.
That's incredible. Well, first of all, I every time I hear version like I haven't heard the full story like that, but you've told me little bits and pieces here and there, and I'm just so proud of you for recognizing both in that moment and along the way, like what you needed to get better and to help yourself. And I think that's something a lot of moms and just women in general tend to struggle
Mhm.
with because we try to just take on all of it all the time and be this super mom, super woman.
Yeah.
Um, and nobody really talks about this stuff. And even if it is talked about, it's almost like I have found like downplayed a little bit, or like, nobody wants to identify it as what it is. And I know it can be really uncomfortable to even talk or share, and sharing with your spouse alone, like that was a huge step. So, obviously, a support system is super important here. But I think, I'm glad you kind of said it wasn't an easy thing, even with your parents being close, even with Tyler's parents being close, even being close to Tyler. Like your husband is amazing. We hear all the Tyler
Mhm.
stories all the time, and you guys have a great relationship. And I know you've worked hard at that relationship, and it's been a lot of, this opening up to each other. So, something that comes up often with our clients is not everybody has a really great support system at home. And sometimes even the people's partners are not supportive, whether it's of a bigger thing like this or something like their fitness journey. So what would you say to someone out there listening who feels like they just don't have that support? Like, is there something you would do first and something you would recommend to them?
Yeah, so it's okay if your spouse doesn't support this journey, like your health and fitness journey, because they're probably not ready to embrace like what that means for them. Like Tyler and I have been together 12 years and he's dabbled in health and fitness. And it's only been since Nora's been born that he's really found his why. Like what does all this mean for him? How is it going to benefit him instead of just me saying, hey, we should do this together.
Yeah.
Like he knows all of the benefits.
Right.
I talk about
You've
it.
talked about it before a few
Yeah.
times.
And but it was never enough for him to want to do it. So I think that that is also a part where I think when somebody is ready to change, but their spouse isn't ready to change, that can bring up like silent anger, and like the expectation of like, hey, your spouse should want to change with you. You should make this huge family lifestyle change. But that's like you're setting the bar so high for somebody who's maybe not even thinking about changing at all. Like when we think about like when we go into the mindset thing, we have like the stages of change and there's pre-contemplation, which means there's nothing happening. Like your spouse might not be ready. They might be ready to support you, but also make sure that you're asking them specifically on how you need them to support you, because that can also be hard too, is like those silent expectations.
Yeah.
But also, social media has a huge way to connect with people. You can come over to my Instagram and you can share all of your highs and lows with your journey because I know how important that is. But also look for people in your community. Like go to group fitness classes, connect with like-minded people,
Mhm.
because that is going to help you find a community that connects with the part of that person that you want to become, that you know that you're capable of becoming. And also just tell your spouse why this is so important for you. Because I think at the end of the day, they might not understand, they might not be ready to change. But if they understand why this is so important for you, I'm betting that they're going to be a little less, I'm not helping you, or a little less supportive. And if not, when I was talking to Tyler, he's like, maybe it's time to go spouse shopping if your spouse can't help you. um, but that's not always option. But also you can lead by example.
Yep.
It's always easier when your partner or the person that you live with at home is doing the same thing that you're doing. It makes it a lot easier. But also, if you have kids, toddlers also don't want to eat all the same meals that you want to eat. So at some point, you have to kind of, okay, pick your battles, right? We always have to pick battles in life. And right now, Milo and Zoe are on a huge food hiatus. I don't even know what they like anymore. Like all the things that they used to like, we don't like anymore, but they're also afraid to try anything new. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. And so we just gave up. I will make two separate dinners, or they can have dinner earlier and I can have dinner later, because at the end of the day, like, is that stressor for this temporary stage with the kids worth it? No, hard no.
I love that.
Um,
I think that's so
and
important to talk about though, because there's so many people out there who are like, oh, you all have to eat the exact same meal all the time, or like, they have a very strict, very black and white way of thinking about
Mhm,
it, but it's gonna ebb and flow with every season. And maybe you guys will get back to that one day. But if it's two separate meals right now and that makes everybody a little bit happier, including you, and a little less stress at dinner time, which we know is always stressful no matter what, then I think that's a win. I think it's so, so important that you talked about that. But also like coming back around to the spouse thing, I love that you said just communicate with them first because
mhm,
oftentimes it is just a lack of communication, right? Like we think that they know why we might want to do something or why we want to invest in some more gym equipment or a coach or whatever it is. But if you don't explain like the true deep down why you're doing it, then you can't expect them to just guess that and know it, right?
mhm.
So I love both of those.
And you have to know why,
Yes.
beyond just wanting to lose weight. Like, what is that going to do for you? What does losing 10 pounds do? How does that add to your life? Is that actually what you're after, or are you looking for other things, and weight loss is just the easy thing because that's what, oh yeah, that's what we have thrown in our face all the time. Like a lot of times that's what people want is they think they want is weight loss, but then once we get into it, then that's actually like pushed back to this, like we'll get there, but there's other things that they want to focus on first.
Exactly. And that's something we talk about all the time on the podcast is, yeah, if you have those weight loss or aesthetic based goals, we are here to support that. But along the way, you're going to be focusing on all of these other areas that we talk about, mindset, movement, habits, training and nutrition are just two pieces of the puzzle. So I'm so glad you brought that up. Speaking of clients and, what we do, I want you to kind of just talk about like, your favorite type of client to work with and like who that person looks like. What are they trying to achieve? What are they struggling with? Because, we with Robin, we talked about how she likes, the shift workers and she really
Mhm.
relates and resonates to those people with all or nothing thinking. So kind of share with us like who your favorite person to work with is.
Yeah. My favorite person to work with is somebody who loves to care for others in some way, whether that's through their career, maybe that's just who they are, like in their soul. Is there somebody who cares for people? Because that's who I am. But they also struggle with caring for themselves. They know that it's important to take care of themselves, but they just don't know how because everyone else seems more important. Everything else in the world feels like it has more urgency. And so I love to help them like peel back and be like, hey, if you just do this one thing for you, if you eat breakfast before you log in for work, if you go for a walk at your lunch break, or if you take your kids for a walk, even though it's really overwhelming sometimes to like rally them in and it's new for all of you and they're going to be a little bit crazy. But if you just do all of those things, you're going to eventually start to feel the positives of pouring into you and how that allows you to pour back into your people in any degree a lot better because if your cup is empty, that's what people get. But if your cup is fuller, people get an even better version of yourself. So that's like my favorite type of specifically like mindset shift is like in habit shift. Like, how do we build up habits that allow you to take care of you, not just one time a week? Like, and it's not just bubble baths or going to the spa or going to get drinks with your friends. It's not just those things. It's like lifestyle things that you can do for yourself, things that are, you don't have, they don't cost a lot of money. They're easy. Like, they're
Mm-hmm.
just basic needs for you because it's easy to get lost as a caretaker in taking care of yourself. And also people who just, they know the things, they have a lot of information. None of us lack the ability to acquire information, but they're not quite sure how to sort through that noise. Like, how do I know what is best for me? I've tried this, but this didn't work? Or how do we like blend multiple techniques and multiple things into like what works best for you? And people who are just really ready for external change, but also internal change and like home change. So you're actually getting a full lifestyle change instead of just you achieved your weight loss goal. Like amazing. That's always super amazing. But what else are we doing? How else are you growing? And when you do those things, when they show up, I've had multiple clients that will start dating again, or they start to find a new career or apply for new jobs that maybe they didn't have the confidence to do before because they've built up their confidence level because they've done things with me that allow them to believe in themselves a little bit more, which is super cool. I think I have 4 clients currently doing that right now,
So
all job
many. I was
searching.
going to
Yeah,
say, you've shared
so
so many
many.
recently, and it's really cool to see. But I
Yeah.
think you're really great at that. You're really great at looking at someone's current life, right? And like figuring out where those gaps are and where we can pull things and add things. And you do a really good job of digging into that mindset side without really making it like I almost feel like they don't even realize it's mindset work because it's really just like, how can we make your life better? you
Mhm.
know? So I love
Yeah, it's
that.
not like heavy, sit down, do this homework. It's
Yes.
like just, hey, what went well? What didn't go? Like, what would you do next time? Like, if this sucked, well, what are you going to do different next time? If you could roll back the tape and you could go and change something, what is one thing that you would change to make next time you experience that better?
Yep.
That is that, because when we do that, we're taking your real life scenario and doing something better. So now you have a plan for next time something like that comes up,
Yep.
and then you can execute it better. And it's probably not going to go perfect, but if we keep doing that, then we figure out the right system for you.
And you ask these questions in such a way that's so comforting. Like you can tell you yourself are a caregiver too, because um, you make people very comfortable and they open up to you about these things that they may have trouble opening up to their spouse or someone else too.
Yeah.
So I love that. Before I let you go, before we wrap things up, I think just share with us like your current fitness goals. What are your current fitness and health goals? I know you and Tyler have been slowly getting back to the morning workouts, even though it's been a crazy season for you guys too. So maybe
Mhm.
talk to us about that.
Yeah, so my current goals are just to get strong.
Fit.
I know this is my third journey in with breastfeeding, and I will breastfeed until Nora's done. And like I think I nursed Milo until he was like 15 or 16 months old, and Zoe was I thought I would be done when I came out to see you guys. And she said, no, I'm not done. And I think it was a few more months I couldn't get away from her. She was a boob monster. But I know that fat loss comes at a really slow rate for me, while I'm breastfeeding. And younger me probably would have hated that, but now I'm just kind of like, whatever. It is what it is. I know that it'll change. But the really cool thing that I love is that while I'm working out and getting stronger, sure, I would love to see the scale drop a little bit, but my clothes are fitting different. But that also tells me that my muscle mass is not being lost through breastfeeding and I'm fueling myself enough. And I have like that's giving me that evidence, which is evidence that is a new way to collect for me. So I'm just focusing on getting strong through the winter because it's about to be winter. But I would also like to do some more winter hikes, especially because Milo and Zoe are big enough where we can handle that more icy terrain and just really building this in with Tyler. It's really fun to work out together. It's like our time to hang out without being burnt out at the end of the day. So
Mhm.
that is super fun. I didn't, when neither one of us thought that that would be like the perk of working out and waking up, even though we get woke up multiple times during the night right now. But like that's our time to laugh and be playful and be friends and not just parents. And the kids will come out and then, but it's still playful. Everyone's in their prime. Like nothing bad has happened. Nobody's overstimulated. Um, and that is my favorite. So right now we're just focusing on getting strong. Tyler's toyed with the idea of doing a triathlon next summer, because there's
Fun.
our city holds a big triathlon and they bike by our house and do the because we live right by the lake. And so I said, you should totally do that. And he's like, you should too. I'm like, nah, that's not, that's not really my thing. I don't, I'm not a strong swimmer. So that is
Same.
like not my thing, but I do want to challenge myself with something in the spring, but I'm not quite sure. When I was training at the gym, I loved working with kettlebells. And I actually would drive to St. Paul, which is like 55 minutes from where I am now. And I took kettlebell classes. So I may invest in some kettlebells, and do like playful stuff with that because that was a lot of fun. And that would make exercise more like playful in a different way. But
Yes.
right now, just building my base of getting strength back postpartum.
I love that. And you know my stance there. I completely agree and think that's something that honestly every postpartum woman should be focusing on because it's so empowering. And whether you're breastfeeding or not, like there's so much to accomplish in that area, fat loss aside. So
Hmm.
if you are postpartum at any point, take notes. This is a great goal to have. But this was such a great episode, and I think we touched on so many different aspects here of your story and just takeaways that people could literally go take action on today. I guess let's close out with just one sentence, like one piece of advice you would give to anyone who's currently in that really dark, hard postpartum season.
I would say be here. Don't be in your head. Don't be in the future. Don't be in the past. Just be right here, right now, as often as you need to. And if you need to set reminders on your phone to be here versus wherever else your head wants you to be, like just be grounded, right where you are as often as you can, because that's the best thing that we can do when we're fighting depression or anxiety.
I love that. All right, Haley. Well, If you guys want to work with Coach Hailie, follow along with her on her Instagram. I'm going to link all of those things in the show notes for you, like her direct link to work with her and all of that. So go connect with her, let her know if you listened and enjoyed this podcast. I'm so glad we got to do this. And stay tuned for the next coach who comes on. I think it is Coach Kara next. But thank you guys for listening, and we will catch you in the next episode.